So I'm going to play you guys a beautiful song that I wrote when I was 10 years old. And this song is my big hit. It's going to go massive one day. It's called Big Butt. So when I was a kid, I definitely felt like I had a really big ass, and I wrote a song about it. And here it goes. Feel free to dance if anybody wants to. Wait for it, wait for it.
I try to sit down in my chair, but my butt's hanging out everywhere. I got a big butt. I have to go to the bathroom, so I close the door, but my titties drop on the floor. I got a big butt.
It's brilliant.
I have to go to bed at night, but my butt's always in sight. I got a big butt. I have to go visit my friend Or, but I can't go through the door. I got a big
So that is me as a 10-year-old. Again, the name of that song is Big Butt, and it's brilliant. Brilliant track.
Without further ado, let me welcome our first weirdo of the morning. He is a local designer, local marketing, copywriting expert. He's a genius and quite weird himself. And luckily, he loves to talk about himself as well. So please welcome John Park.
Everybody doing okay? Yeah. Good. All right. Today we're going to embrace weird. Breathe in, weird. Breathe out, judgment. Breathe in, creativity. Breathe out, the boundaries. Breathe in, creative mornings and the beautiful counterculture, welcome coffee. Breathe out the rest of the week. You ready? Yeah. We're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about what's so weird. This reminds me of what's that smell? What's so weird? And then weird as a weapon. And then embracing the weird. So we're going to start with a little group exercise by a show of hands. Raise your hand if being creative is one of the top requirements of your job. Yeah, over half. Raise your hand if being creative could help you be more successful at your job. Raise your hand if you've ever had the thought and the fear that I'm never going to have another creative idea ever again in my life. Me too. Today I'm going to help you get over that fear with some strategies and talking about weirdness. I was like, Yvonne, let me do a talk. And he was like, oh yeah, we got one coming up. It's going to be great for you. It's called Weird. I'm like, oh, well, thanks, I guess. So what's so weird anyway? I had the benefit of thinking about this for about a month, and it's really hard to define, right? But to paraphrase U.S. Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, I know it when I see it. I know weird when I see it. I thought about people who probably all along their career were labeled as weird. And then I realized that Andy Warhol, David Lynch, and that they're all old white guys that look kind of the same. But you look back at their careers now, and you wouldn't really call them weird, right, over time. So it's like creativity equals weirdness plus time. And that's why I want you to open your mind to the weird around you and not be judgmental, not be not shut it off right away, and open your mind, because some of the most creative Gen Xers or baby boomers all along, probably for decades, were called weird. What do we call weird? Anything that's bizarre, unexpected, different. What's so bad about that? But we're afraid to go to that place in our creative lives because we're afraid to be called weird. You think those three guys were afraid? They're probably not afraid of anything because they're white and they're male. So they, privilege. But they went to that place not in a place of fear, but to expand their creativity. They embraced it, and they were called weird, but now look at them. But you say, John, I'm not a musician. I'm not head of the Talking Heads. I'm not a performance artist. I'm not a filmmaker. I have like a real job, dude. Look at this weird thing. Which banner? These are both banner ads that actually ran. Which one do you think had the 137 click-through rate, and which one do you think had the 49 click-through rate? You're right or wrong, because I didn't ask you. It's the one on the right had the higher click-through rate than the one on the left, and it's only because it's weird. Weird works. Sometimes hitting people on the side of the head with something that's unexpected works. Don't forget to go to that weird place when you're trying to be creative. Now, you're good at your job, so you're going to be able to temper that and not come with the 100% concentrated weirdness, right? This person on the right still remembered to put a CTA, but he wasn't afraid to go to that weird place and try it out. Triple the click-through rate. All right, another group exercise. I want you to pull out your smart device. Go to bit.ly/weirdchs. It's going to bring up a little form, Google form, where you're going to be able to vote. I'm going to show you 3 commercials. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. In a previous life, I used to write TV commercials, and I kind of fell in love with commercials, and I started collecting them, and I kind of never got over it. When I was asked to talk about weird, I thought, I wonder if there are any weird TV commercials that I could show, so I found some. We're going to see if weird equals good, and how does weird equal good. So I'm going to show you 3 commercials, and I'm going to ask you to vote. Is it coming up? Is it working? Okay. On the first one, and the second one, and the third one, on a scale of 1 to 5 for weirdness and a scale of 1 to 5 for goodness. And you can just, however you want to judge a good commercial, that's fine. Ready? Commercial number 1. All right. Vote on that one. We'll move on to the next one. Just look up when you're ready. When you're done voting. Okay, good enough. Isn't it obvious what that has to do with chocolate? No? All right, vote on that one. Look up when you're done. Commercial 3, here we go. All right, vote on that one. All right, so the first one was the Skittles one. It's coming up for a 4, 3, 4, 5, mostly 4s for weird, 4s and 5s for good, mostly 4s for good. Gorilla is coming up with mostly 5s for weird, mostly 3s for good, probably because gorillas have nothing to do with chocolate. That goes back to my original point. You got to be good at your job too. Just 100% pure, unadulterated, concentrated weird does not necessarily make good creative work. Happy Mornings coming in at 5. I guarantee you you're going to be walking out here going, Happy mornings, wake up, you can sleep when you want it. I love the guy at the end who takes a sip of coffee and he just starts singing along a little bit. And 5 for how good is it? that creative team kind of did okay. They did great. But John, you said these commercials come out of advertising agencies where they hire hipsters riding penny farthing bikes, and it's just a creative yes and no. This is a pre-production book from a commercial for Flow that I wrote. Flow, the progressive spokesperson. It weighs about 1,000 pounds. And the sections are called personnel, calendar, boards, talent, stage, art department, crew, and vendors. And it has things like, let's see, has things like art, little drawings of where people are going to go and stand so that it's exactly right. It has phone numbers, cell phone numbers of people. It has little mock-ups. It has the script. Oh, by the way, here's the script called Superstore Savings Checkout. It's version GG. I used to put a letter at the end of all my versions, and then when they hit Z, I would go back to AA, BB, and not like as I was writing them, as I was submitting them, like to the client. 6-month process really between when, and I'm not saying it's not magical. I'm not saying it's not magical to show up on a soundstage and people are putting together something that was just in your head like 6 months ago. But it's 6 months of opportunities to take the creativity out of what you're doing. So I'm saying weird in itself just isn't good enough. You got to fight for it. Not only do you have to be good at your job and temper the weird, you also have to fight for it. This is a guy, Matthew Klickstein. He was writing a book and he interviewed me and about flow and about that process and really I really don't get the whole thing about flow. I mean, yes, it's the longevity, but he wrote that flow kind of marked a change. And he wrote this: Park might be a little modest here in the suggestion that flow was more of a sign of the geeky times and less of what Slavoj Zizek would refer to as master signifier, establishing a new, wait for it, paradigm of sorts in the realm of salespersons. After all, it wasn't until after Flow that we began seeing a real influx of similar kinds of characters, like that quirky AT&T commercial figure Lily, who's almost a carbon copy of Flow and Look's personality and overall message. This is what we called mimetic isomorphism, the process through which a business emulates another based on the first business having found success doing a certain something or other. A handy-dandy euphemism for, essentially, one business ripping off another's successful idea. In this case, as Park says, the business attitude of, quote, geek is gorgeous, unquote. You got to fight for it. In that 6-month process, I had to fight to make sure that she was still quirky when clients wanted to bring her back into the middle. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. This is the process of how you make a TV commercial. All of the commercials that I showed you, and I'm not saying that mine got anywhere close to being as weird as those, had to go through this process too. There's a creative brief where they say these are the business goals that we want to do. Then there's research and script writing and concept development. Then there's production, post-production, final delivery, and then you got to deliver, and it still has to be weird. So use weird as a weapon, but be good at your job, and also fight for it. But you can't just walk out of here and be weird. Okay? How do you gain that weirdness? You got to be open to the quote-unquote weird people around you. Don't be judgmental. Don't be so turned off right away when somebody seems a little different. Open up your community, open up your horizons. Let yourself be influenced by their weirdness so that you can bring that weirdness, and you might make some friends too. To paraphrase another cultural icon, we're all pretty weird. Some of us are just better at hiding it. That's all. And to quote another icon, Gordon Gekko says, the point is, ladies and gentlemen, that weird, for lack of a better word, is good. Weird is right. Weird works. Weird clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. And weird, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to do a Q&A afterwards, but if you have questions about flow and that process, I'm going to be doing an AMA on Reddit. So I'd love for you guys to hold that. If you want to know when it's going to happen early next week. Go to bit.ly/JohnAMA, sign up for the email list, and I will send you information about that so that you can join me online and I can answer your questions. And shoot me an email anytime you want, john@artsinside.com, or reach out via social media. I love being in Charleston. I love being in this creative community. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, guys, let's keep this rolling. Was that weird enough for you? If not, we got another weirdo for us today. Please help me welcome Marcus Amaker, our first Poet Laureate of Charleston, recently nominated. Please give him a hand. Let's get weird, Marcus.
When I grow up, I want to be a rock star like Prince. People laugh because they think I can't sing. That's because they never heard me. I'm going to start out by entertaining parties, which I spelled wrong. Then I'll see if businessmen like my singing. I want to be a singer because I think it's interesting. I'm in a children's choir already. I want to start when I'm about 19. I don't know who's going to be in my band yet. As New Shoes says, I can't wait. I don't know if you guys remember that song. I wrote that when I was 10 years old, and I felt very weird at the time. And at that time, I felt very sorry for myself. I grew up in a military family, so I was born in Las Vegas and moved to England, and then to Maryland, and then to Okinawa, Japan, and then to Texas. So I was an only child, going through all of that, feeling very weird, not having friends or girlfriends, and feeling very sorry for myself. So I'm going to read you a poem that I wrote about that time in my life, and then sort of show you why it was actually a blessing, why I'm weird. If anybody's feeling weird or isolated, things are good. Things are good. You're going to be fine. So here's a poem I wrote about that. And it's so interesting for me to have this history of a speech impediment and being a poet and entertainer. When I was in the 8th grade, I wore baggy pants and my book bag on my chest because I was not bold enough to throw the monkey off my back. Inside of the backpack was a lack of confidence weighing me down. I had not found my voice. This is a portrait of a black boy in bloom, the brown-eyed baby whose birth's purpose was to unearth poems. When I was in the 9th grade, I became brilliant at being silent and building up barriers, lost in the soundproof walls of my mind, trying to find my voice. This is a portrait of a bashful teenager in bloom, blind to the way he was bruising his inner strength, searching and searching for a voice. Then poetry saved me. Poetry brought me back to my core. Poetry blossomed the boy who didn't know he had wings. Poetry made me sing. When I was sitting down to write this poem, I brushed off any bad feelings about myself because I broke free from the monkey on my back and unpacked a beautiful, booming, blissful, and brave voice. This is the portrait of me now. So, when I was around that time, around that age, 10 years old, an album came out that changed my life. Prince. Who here is a Prince fan? Are there any Prince fans? Sweet. So this album came out the year that I wrote this, and it changed my life. Because one, this is really weird, you know? This is like the number one pop star, rock star, whatever. Like, this is 3 years after Purple Rain. He's posing nude on an album cover. One thing that really inspired me was that my parents are big fans and they did not shy away from me buying this tape. So I bought the tape and I'm like, this is really weird. So, one thing that I really loved about Prince and still love about Prince is that he wrote all the music, designed the album cover, wrote lyrics, all of that stuff. So when I was a kid, I was like, I want to design this. I want to sing like this. I want to write lyrics like this. And this really inspired me. So Prince really is the origin of everything that I do. So when I was a kid, I decided to make music myself. So this is only 4 of like the 15 tapes that I did. And if you look on the back of these tapes, it's like written, produced, conceived, drawn by Marcus Amaker, which is the same thing that he wrote on the back of here, like produced, written, conceived by Prince. So all inspired. So I'm gonna play you guys a beautiful song that I wrote when I was 10 years old. And this song is my big hit. It's gonna go massive one day. It's called Big Butt. So when I was a kid, I definitely felt like I had a really big ass, and I wrote a song about it. And here it goes. Feel free to dance if anybody wants to. Wait for it. Wait for it.
I try to sit down in my chair, but my butt's hanging out everywhere. I got a big butt. I have to go to the bathroom, so I close the door, but my chin is strapped on the floor. I got a big butt.
It's brilliant.
I have to go to bed at night, but my butt's always in sight. I got a big butt. I have to go visit my friend Aura, but I can't go through the door. I got a big butt.
So that is me as a 10-year-old. Again, the name of that song is Big Butt, and it's brilliant. Brilliant track. So, I definitely was a weird kid, as you could tell. I feel like I'm still weird. So one thing that I really was inspired by with Prince was that I felt like he was doing music for himself, and other people just happened to listen to it, you know? So throughout my life, I have created stuff for myself, and I really do feel like other people just happen to listen to me write poetry or listen to me do music or look at something that I've designed. So with that in mind, that kid grew up to be me. So when I moved here in 2003, I started to pick up music again, and I started to create music for myself. And again, this is music that I haven't really let a lot of people listen to because I feel like it keeps the core of myself. That's one thing that I want to let you guys know. If you feel stifled creatively, it's probably because you're creating for other people all the time. Like, create for yourself, keep it for yourself, and then it'll help you when you create things for other people. So I'm going to play you a song that I did probably 6 years ago. Not as good as Big Butt because it's not as cute. I'm not as cute anymore. But this is a song. I won't play the whole thing. But this is a video. And it's definitely weird.
is, how do you look yourself in the mirror when the computer screen is so much clearer? What is the answer?
This whole concept was about the dangers of social media. Okay, so thank you. So when I created that, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to share this with everybody. I actually just kept that to myself and got an illustrator to do it. And then I found myself more creative at work. So during that time, that was when I was working for the Post and Courier. I started Charleston Scene, which you guys have seen all around town. Comes out on Thursdays. I'm no longer there, but they let me be weird, which was really cool. So again, I was coming to them from this place of creating so much for myself. Then when I go into the office, it was just like something that I just did. So they let me be a little weird. What's so funny, you see the Pride issue that's on the second row there. That came out in 2010 for the very first Charleston Pride Parade. At that time, Post and Courier was even less. Wait, how do I say this nicely? They were, yeah, less prideful than they are now. Now they have stories about, gay issues and everything. But when I did that, I had a closed door meeting with the editor, and he told me, he goes, I'm not a bigot, but I don't think that you should have done that. There was like another thing going on, like a boat festival or something going on. So I'm just sitting there thinking, you know what? Like, you guys gave me this position. Let me be weird, and they let me be weird for about 6 more months because I kept doing things like that. I kept doing things like I did a story on Twitter. A lot of the Twitter stars in town at the time. That this was when Twitter was just starting. Bottom right, like there's a dude with balloons as a head. I'm like, that'll be cool. Just a lot of different things that I was doing that I felt really proud of. So Post and Courier let me be weird. But again, at the same time, I was doing stuff like this. Now, this is all sort of old stuff, but this is graphic design that I was doing while I was at the Post and Courier because it was my way of breathing. You know, I had to let this sort of corporate thing go. But along the way, I've been very lucky. A lot of clients have let me be weird. Like I've done posters for the Charleston Farmers Market, Moja Festival, Charleston Jazz Festival. I'm actually designing a national music magazine now, and there's no ads in it. It is beautiful. And even in my talks with them, they're open to my weird ideas. And I feel like it is because I'm coming from that place of creativity. So another thing that the Post and Courier made me do was get on TV a lot. So this was when, man, I sound old, but this is when video and social media was just getting to be a big thing. So they had me do a lot of videos and sit in and talk to Warren Pepper on TV, and you can see how awkward I look right there. I'm just like, what are you talking about, brother? Like, but anyway, so I did that every week. So it's so funny how things work. So they definitely told me I needed to do video and I needed to do website stuff. And I was really upset about that. I'm like, I don't want to do all this stuff. But I really learned a lot. So one of the clients that let me do stuff, this is a video that I did for the Charleston Regional Alliance for the Arts. And it was all created by me. They let me do whatever I want here. So it's really cool. Play a little bit of this for you.
Arts matter because it is so important for our community to have a good understanding and knowledge of the arts, not only for ourselves as adults, but more importantly for our children. Art matters in every aspect of life, from the design of a car to a building, the clothing we wear, how we're put together, called art really matters.
Arts matter.
All right, so I'm gonna skip a little bit, but you can see that whole video on my website. But that was just another example of just, man, they were open to me being a little weird. I'm like, let's go on the bridge, because that runner, we wanted to interview him. I'm like, let's go on the bridge and talk to him, and it took us 4 or 5 tries to get it right, but it all worked out. So just in closing, I feel like I would say just be authentic. That's how I got this position as poet laureate, and I also will bring it back to Prince, because even up to his death, he was just very weird. This was one of his last albums. Kind of makes me emotional, but he was very authentic his whole life. And you think that he cared about being weird? That's who he was. And produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince, like just like my Big Butt song. And if anybody wants that song, I'll give it to Creative Mornings, and we can give it to y'all so you can listen to it, make it a #1 hit. So thank you all so much.